I came onto the maximum security unit. This is long term. These guys are never leaving this place, and they're the most violent in the hospital.
Yeah.
Most unpredictable. And so me not being physically big, like I'm not large in stature, but I can negotiate pretty well. I can talk my way out of some stuff, you know.
If you're not big, you better learn how to
Yeah, you got to be
negotiate.
quick, right? So we had this really big guy. He was really upset, and we're walking onto the shift. And we're like, what has happened in the last 12 hours that's got this guy to this point? Because we try to keep him as calm as possible, just interactive, that kind of stuff. So security had come in and done a room search, right? Occasionally we're doing that stuff for safety reasons, finding contraband, all that other kind of stuff, shanks. So in that search, the security had put his dentures on a bed. The blankets got tossed. The dentures got broken. It takes a long time to get that stuff when you're in an institution like that. Mm-hmm. And he was super upset. I mean, he wouldn't be able to eat now for months. I mean, just all these things. Yeah. He was super mad. And I was like, there's got to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
So I remember, just distinctly, I walked into the nursing station. I got on the computer and I started printing out policies. And I was reading these policies to find out, did they follow the policy in the search?
Interesting.
And they didn't, of course, which is why dentures got broken. So it's just like, those are the things I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
My friends, welcome to another episode of the Bridging Divides podcast, where we give you the advice, tools, and resources that you need to build the bridge to success. Today, I have my guest, Adam Perkins, here.
Hello.
Who I am very, very excited to introduce. He is a good friend of mine, and he works at Mind 24/7 as the
general manager of the Higley location.
All right. How many locations are there of Mind 24/7?
4 current locations.
4 current locations throughout the valley here in Arizona.
Phoenix, yep.
Okay, cool. Are you guys in other states or no?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Big plans.
I like your style. I like your style. I was reading over the answers that you sent, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy, like, you've had a trip, man.
It's been an interesting experience so far. Yes.
You've got some experiences, dude. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I am looking here and I'm like, okay, I've gone through some stuff and I've done some things, but this guy, man, he takes the cake. Works way harder than I do. And hey, I met your kids too. They rival my own. Let's just say that. You know, when you came over, I've got 2 kids in their underwear running around or whatever. And you're like, yeah,
par for the course.
That's the same thing. I really wanted to make you feel at home.
Oh, I appreciate that.
That's really what it was.
Very comfortable space. Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm super, super excited to have you. And we've been planning this for a while because I really wanted to get you on. At the time that this is released, it will be Suicide Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And that is a topic that is very, very close to my heart. And I've talked about this on previous episodes, but with my battle with depression and with suicidal thoughts and that sort of thing, it really, really hit me very strong. And I luckily had people around me to be able to, not allow me to go through with anything that I had come up with. And it's a very dark time. It's very scary. And oddly enough, you really try to you isolate. Mm-hmm. You need, and that's the exact opposite of what you need when you're going through something like that.
Right.
So we're going to go through a couple things here, introduce you with just a couple of your accomplishments as we get started here, just to kind of introduce kind of you as a person, and then we'll delve into really what Mind 24/7 is all about.
Sure.
Go from there. So some accomplishments. I mean, I'll let you do the talking. Let's hear you brag a little bit.
Well, I don't know if brag is the right word, but I've done some things, and I guess just a little bit of background about me. I've got 3 brothers, and I was right there in the middle. Yeah. So I learned at an early age to negotiate quickly and get the things I need and try to get out of trouble and that kind of thing.
Awesome.
And that kind of thing. So as a middle child, I just kind of became that natural negotiator.
I can see you in the back, just like
yeah,
plotting.
just
Like,
contemplative. And
how am I gonna pit these guys against each other?
That's right.
I mean, negotiate.
Yes, indeed. But did my undergrad social science and focused on criminal justice and psychology and a little bit of history. And really the question that I started thinking about was, why are people the way they are, right? Chicken or the egg, nature or nurture, all that kind of stuff.
Love that. I love psychology. My wife has a bachelor's in psychology. I'm actually finishing my degree in communications.
Excellent.
Because I love figuring out how people think, how they work, how will they best understand. And so we talk about, we could have a podcast like every night of whatever we talk about, because we end up talking about something like that. But please go on.
Yeah, no worries. So my first job out of college was at the Oregon State Hospital, and I didn't understand what a state hospital was prior to going in there. You know, I'm thinking surgeries and doctors and, you know, hospital type environment. That definitely was not what that is. And but I also found that I really enjoyed it and I thrived, and within a few years promoted up to about the top of where I was.
So what is the state hospital?
So the state hospitals in Oregon, most states, is for people who have committed crimes, or maybe they are so sick that they can't function on their own. Jail and prison is not a good environment, although unfortunately jails and prisons are full of people like this.
Right.
But if you are found guilty, except for insanity is the plea basically, you can be committed to the state hospital. And so it's a place where people can go and not be in jail, not be in prison, but also receive treatment.
Man, was that...
It's so I've got some stories. I mean, it just depends on
we could go for
how
hours.
long you wanted to talk about that.
Oh my
but
goodness.
I can tell you my two quick stories is, one, I was bringing Tina, my wife, she was already working there, right? She was a nurse.
Oh, gotcha.
And she was the one that said I should apply for this position. And so I went to bring her flowers one day, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And she finally came downstairs, and she was in tears because she had just cut down a lady who was hanging herself in the shower. And that was my first introduction to what that kind of place was.
Welcome to
right?
work.
And so then my first day on the job, we walked onto the female unit, and I remember it distinctly. We walked onto this unit, brand new minted BHTs, behavioral health technicians, knowing nothing, right? And I hear a yell from down the hall, "Stop her!" And so we look down the hall and we see this little, like 5'0" female running full speed. "I'm gonna kill that mother effer!" And we're like, what is going on? And so the guy next to me, another new grad, he just put his arm out to catch her, basically. So ends up clotheslining her. She hits her face on the tile, breaks her teeth. There's blood everywhere.
Gosh.
And we're all questioning, what is going on here? What did we just get ourselves into? That's day one. So over the next couple of years, learning the business, promoting, all of this kind of thing. I ended up transferring over to a maximum security unit on the men's side. Yeah. And I had an experience over there that actually really pushed me to go back to school. And that experience was, I came onto the maximum security unit. This is long term. These guys are never leaving this place, and they're the most violent in the hospital. Yeah. Most unpredictable. And so me not being physically big, like I'm not large in stature, but I can negotiate pretty well. I can talk my way out of some stuff, you know.
If you're not big, you better learn how to
negotiate. Yeah, you got to be quick, right? So we had this really big guy. He was really upset, and we're walking onto the shift. And we're like, what has happened in the last 12 hours that's got this guy to this point? Because we try to keep him as calm as possible, just interactive, that kind of stuff. So security had come in and done a room search, right? Occasionally we're doing that stuff for safety reasons, finding contraband, all that other kind of stuff, shanks. So in that search, the security had put his dentures on a bed. The blankets got tossed. The dentures got broken. It takes a long time to get that stuff when you're in an institution like that. Mm-hmm. And he was super upset. I mean, he wouldn't be able to eat now for months. These things. He was super mad. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. right?
Yeah.
So I remember just distinctly, I walked into the nursing station, I got on the computer, and I started printing out policies. And I was reading these policies to find out, did they follow the policy in the search?
Interesting.
And they didn't, of course,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is why dentures got broken. So it's just like, those are the things I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So after that, I was kind of at the top of my class at that point. I was a supervisor for the BHTs, that kind of thing. I was getting into training. They had built a new state hospital during this time, so I was in that transition with all the maximum security people. I was on an advisory board for the prison system. So there was a lot going on, but I was also at that point where if I want to continue in this business, I have to get my my grad degree, right?
Yeah. Real quick, one of the things that you said though is like, it's you found a way to make it better. You know, I've heard somebody say that the whole "if it ain't broke, don't fix it." That's a flawed way of thinking.
Red flag.
If it ain't broke, see how you can make it better.
Yeah.
There's always something that you can do to improve. Don't just leave things the way that they are. Don't leave your life the way it is. It's a great metaphor for life in general.
Yep.
You know, if your life ain't broke, don't just leave it how it is. Look for ways that you can make it better. But the same thing applies to business, to everything like that. So I love that. That's fantastic.
And I mean, another phrase that makes me crazy is that's the way we've always done it.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to. Well, I won't say what I want to do, but it's
yeah.
like that's
we'll
a phrase that makes me crazy.
We'll try to keep it PG here. No, but that's. I mean, if we leave things the way that they always have been done,
we'd never evolve.
We never would have evolved.
We'd never get better.
No, nothing would be invented.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't have medicine, and we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm with you right there.
Great.
I'm reminded why we're friends. But yeah, go on. Please.
Yeah. So, anyways, after that, like I said, I recognized, and my dad had already been talking to me for years about going back to school and that kind of thing, and it was something that I always wanted to do. I just never really had the appropriate motivation, right? The internal drive, whatever.
And this was your undergrad, or
yeah? So this is going into my grad degree.
Okay.
Yeah, going to grad school. So that was one of the first times that Tina and I packed up. We were up in Oregon and moved down here to Phoenix. My brother was down here. He says, "Hey, come move in with us, go to school, get your stuff done." I was like, sweet, green light. So we came down here for the first time, moved in with my brother, his family. They had 6 kids. We had 3, I think, at that point. Dang. It was a full house. Plus, my other youngest brother was living on his little porch at the time. It was a mess.
And how big of a?
It was like this size house. I mean, like 2,000 square feet. You know, we were just shoved in there like
holy
sardines.
Crap. Yeah, so, triple bunk beds on every wall.
So that didn't last very long. You know, I mean, 6 months and we were getting our own apartment. But it was awesome.
Good motivation.
And I owe him, like, for the rest of forever, I owe him,
well,
you know.
Of course.
He got us there.
That's awesome.
So, anyways, so I did my MBA. And then by that time, Tina and I were ready to kind of get out of the heat. That was a pretty big transition from the Northwest to Arizona. And
just a little.
A little bit. And so then we went out to Michigan for a little while, and I worked in healthcare design out there for an insurance company, basically.
Yeah.
And found out that I could do spreadsheets, but all day, every day in a cubicle, not my bag. Every time someone would trip or cough, I thought we were going to go hands-on with a patient. You know, it's like having these flashbacks, like, hey,
dude,
what are we doing? What are we doing? We're not doing anything.
Your situational awareness was like through the roof.
We're not doing anything except for typing on computers. So I was
someone
like,
drops something and you like tackle them.
Let's go.
I can see it in my head. Oh my gosh.
So anyways, I looked around. We were ready to come back from the Northwest, and I got a job with the DOC, Washington State DOC.
Okay.
And so we moved back out to Washington, and I started doing healthcare in a women's prison for about 4 years just outside of Seattle. And that was an interesting experience as well, but it was like the whole thing is focused in healthcare and taking care of people, right? Mm-hmm. And so from that point, I just continued on, and that's kind of how I've ended up here now, back in mental health specifically, but all those years working in prison, it's a very hard environment to begin with, intentionally so. It's purpose-built, right?
Yeah.
But trying to take care of people in there, trying to do healthcare inside, it's a hard thing, right? And like I said earlier, there's a lot of people in there that need a lot more help than we can provide. And so my hat's off to everybody working inside those walls, from the cooks and the janitors to the porters to up to the warden and everybody in between. It's a hard job.
Oh, and that's honestly that's you and I have talked, and I've heard other stories. Because shoot, we've been friends for 4 or 5 years now. I
Yeah.
think 6 maybe.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting. I wouldn't necessarily think of prison, taking care of prisoners and all this other stuff to what you're doing now. But like you said, the transition or the connection really is that taking care of people aspect.
Yep.
That you have there. And so I'm excited to jump into Mind 24/7. So explain to us, just so that we all know, what is Mind 24/7? What do you do?
Yeah.
What are the services that are provided?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
So
into that
Mind
for us.
24/7 is a concept. It's crisis mental health, specifically that crisis time, like you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
around suicidal thoughts, ideas, intentions, discussions, all that kind of stuff. And it really is a short period of time that people have with those thoughts that can lead to action, right? Can be hours at a max, right? And so
Because you just spiral.
yeah,
You get into that
once
mental
you
state.
get to that point, and that's like the way it was explained to me one time was you've thought your way into a box with no way out except for one, right? And so if you can capture people just before those moments and kind of pull them through, forcefully or otherwise, you can get them through that, get them out of their head, whatever that takes to keep them alive long enough to understand, hey, there is a way to fix this, right? Yeah. There is a way. There is another path, right? And sometimes that's just the kind of emphasis that people need to get through that hard moment, right? And so the design of our company is crisis mental health. So we're not trying to be long-term providers, but where this spurs from is if you think about anyone, kids, adults, in those moments, where are you going to go? Something's going to happen. You're going to go to an ER.
Right.
You're going to go to an emergency room where you're going to sit because you're not bleeding, right?
Yeah, so
it's not,
they don't
you're kind
see
of back
it as
burner stuff, right?
Which
in
is,
an ER.
oh my gosh, far from true.
Right. And so, or you're going to get into a fight with somebody, right? Whether it's your parents or someone, police will be involved. Where are the police going to take you? To jail.
Jail, yeah.
Right.
Which
so
you just gave an example of somebody that was in one of those situations and they took their own life.
Yeah. Yep. And so those are the options, right? Outside of mind, what we do, those are the options, right? And so in either one of those options, you're not going to get the help that you need, right? You're going to be sitting, you're going to be in a jail cell, you're going to be in an ER, in a waiting room. You might get a room 6 or 8 hours later. You might see someone 6 or 8, 10 hours after that, right? But what you need is that intervention. And that's where Mind 24/7 comes in, right? So you can walk into our doors in any one of our 4 locations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have providers on site 24/7.
To be able to give you that immediate attention. There's no waiting. It's let's get you in and let's take care of you.
And one of our key metrics from the beginning is door-to-doc time. So from the moment you walk in the door, our goal is within 30 minutes. That you're in front of a doctor, in front of someone who can prescribe, who can make a recommendation.
Talk you through it.
All that kind of stuff, right? So we've got licensed therapists, we've got medical providers, we've got mental health providers, we've got, of course, the BHTs, nurses, and that's a 24/7 operation.
That's fantastic. And do you work in conjunction with, like, long-term care? Because, I mean, we don't want to jump back into that or fall back into it more rather into that kind of mindset. So how does that work? From when they get in, someone gets in, they get the treatment and great, they're not going to follow through anymore. Right. What happens next?
Yeah. So every individual is different, right? Every situation is different. Generally speaking, if you walk into our facility, there's kind of 3 things that we can do with you, right? Or for you. We can have an express visit. And that means maybe you need a medication adjustment. Maybe you've run out of meds, right? And you've been stable, and maybe you need that refill before you can get back to your primary care provider, that kind of thing. So there's that option. We have progressions, which is an outpatient therapy option as well. And so maybe you're just something's happened, or maybe you're going through a hard time, you're starting to go down that path again. We can say, all right, well, let's set you up with some outpatient therapy.
Good.
Generally it's pretty temporary. We try not to go over 90 days, of course, because we're not trying to be a long-term care provider,
Yeah.
but rather we'll set you up with services if you don't already have them in the community, that kind of thing.
Right.
Give you resources, all of that.
While you're trying to figure out.
We'll try to bridge that divide, right?
Hey, there you go.
And so
I like your style. No, but that's brilliant though.
Yeah. And so then the other thing that we could do is what we call crisis observation.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of our buildings are built around a crisis unit, both for youth and adults, of course, separate.
Right.
But that way, if you're in a place where you have suicidal thoughts, intent, plan, all of that kind of thing, we can say, all right, we understand that. We're going to help you get you through that. And so we can change them out into a set of scrubs, introduce them onto our crisis observation unit. And by design, it's supposed to be temporary, like 24 hours max. And so we have reclining chairs. We don't have beds. It's not long term. It's just that crisis time. If you need medications, we can do medications, all of that kind of thing. So, but again, it's a 24-hour facility. Doctors, nurses on site 24 hours a day, and you have access to pretty much anything you need. We have really good catered food in every single meal. So yeah, that's the options.
No, and I honestly, I am just in love with what you guys do, because again, I'm always trying to look at bridging divides. I mean, this is what we're all about, right? I mean, we talk about business and keys to success and success stories and all these different things on that. But mental health is the first step in being able to succeed.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted to interview you in the first place, because so many of us, whether you are suffering with, these thoughts or not, we feel alone in what we're going through.
Yep.
And yes, we would love to succeed. We would love to prosper, but we don't know how to get out of our own way.
Yes.
And I think that, there are, and I've had people on the podcast that have talked about how they have been in that position where they have wanted to take their own life, or they were close to taking their own life.
Yeah.
And fast forward to now, how they've been able to get through that and are now thriving.
Yeah.
You don't want to just survive, you want to thrive.
Right.
And
right.
that's what I think that's the goal that all of us really have ultimately, is to, or really what everybody deserves is to thrive.
Agreed.
That's what living really is.
Right.
We're not just trying to get through life.
Yeah.
We want to live it.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break and say, if you guys are getting any value from this, if you guys are enjoying it, having a good time with us today, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Everybody says that, I know, but hey, can't beat them, join it. Just want to let you guys also know about our newsletter that we have coming out. It'll let you know about all the latest and greatest news that we've got, anything Bridging Divides related, all the events that we've got coming up, all of the different organizations, nonprofits out there that are doing awesome, amazing things that you can also be a part of. It'll also let you know about the book that I've got coming out, The Bridge Strategy. Super, super excited about that. And we'll let you know when that gets released. We'll also let you know about any additional nuggets of information and inspiration that we've got, different fun stories that we don't necessarily mention in these videos or episodes. So if that's something that interests you, then check it out in the description and we'll make you part of the Bridging Divides family. Excited to have you here. We'll get back into it.
So again, for us, for people watching, whether you are going through this or whether you're somebody that somebody that might be going through something like this, how can we recognize the signs? Because you've been around this a lot.
Yeah.
So what can we do, either with ourselves to recognize, hey, I might need to talk to somebody, or we have someone that we love where we go, we should really get them some help.
Right.
What should we look out
I
for?
think, a lot of things that you've already kind of mentioned. Reclusiveness, someone who's otherwise outgoing or engaged, and they start to pull back, right? They stop including themselves respectfully. Comments, right? Little words we use, right? Words have meaning.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just want to be tuned into the words and the phrases that they're using. Are they have suicidal thoughts, intents? Are there other things going on? Are there abuse? There could be years of abuse under the surface that no one's ever talking about. And so you have to also know to ask the right questions. Are they safe? Do they feel safe? Do they want to return home? Right? Is there something going on with other friends, family members, that kind of stuff. So we work a lot with crisis teams in the Valley. We work a lot with schools and resource officers, police, fire, all those kinds of first responders. And it's just kind of being in tune with people, quite honestly. And so the relationships that you have with people, recognizing changes in affect, like I mentioned, if they're a little bit more down or recluse than they typically are, always a good time to ask how they're doing, what's going on. Sit them down and have a cup of coffee or whatever the case is.
Yeah. And how do you approach that? Because it's like, how you doing? I'm fine. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
How do you delve deeper than that? Because I would imagine there's a certain amount of courage, or you have to love a person enough to not just accept that fine answer.
Right.
What do you do?
It's vulnerability. Right? You got to be willing to be courageous and vulnerable kind of at the same time, right? You got to be able to ask those questions. Are you feeling safe? Are you having any thoughts of hurting yourself or others, right? We have kids that will make comments about or draw pictures in school like, I'm going to shoot this person or whatever, or I'm going to come in with a gun or whatever. I mean, those are things that we have to take seriously anymore, right? And those little things can escalate so quickly. And so if you're recognizing or noticing those things, just having the courage to ask a couple of those questions, how are they actually doing, right? Are they feeling safe? And sometimes when you do that, that person may just break down at that point and say, I know, I'm really struggling. Or maybe they won't,
That's happened to me personally, where it's just like it's all under the surface and then it's just festering and roiling.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the right question, the right person, the right hand on my shoulder to have somebody let me know that they're there for me,
right? And
then it's just
right,
and that alone has helped to be able to get through what I was going through.
Right, agreed. And it's not as stigmatized as it used to be, although it's still out there. Suicide and suicidal thoughts or ideas, ideation, mental health in general, exactly. Yeah. So just having the courage to have those conversations, and really it's just, like I think you mentioned earlier, just loving people, right? Yeah. If you have love for yourself, you have love for the next person, right? Because we're all going through life. We're all trying to figure it out, right? And It's not easy.
No,
right?
there's no guidebook.
There's no guidebook, right?
I mean, sure, there are books, and we've talked about the Bible and different religious texts, the Torah,
right.
The blah blah blah. I mean, whatever those are, and those are good.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's no guidebook that says you need to do this and this and this and this and that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But no, that's you talked about, and something I wanted to follow up on. You talked about a vulnerability in the person kind of asking, like, to be looking for those signs for other people. Can you explain what vulnerability it takes from the person kind of investigating or asking, how are you doing? What do you mean by that vulnerability?
Well, I think it's easy enough to go through our day and our lives, the years, just doing our own thing, right? We're inside our heads. I did this for a long time, which is actually what led to Tina and I separating for a short time.
Oh, yeah,
right?
You told me about that.
And it was just me. I was focused. I'm doing school. I'm doing work. I'm doing this for the family. I'm doing it for the future. I got no time for anybody else, right? And in that space, I couldn't care about anybody else. I couldn't even care for my wife, right? I couldn't care for my kids because I was focused on just taking care of me to do my thing under the guise of I'm doing it for the family.
Which, if you think about it, at the end of the day, it's like you're doing this for them, but what does it matter if you've lost them along the way?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. So in those headspaces, we can't be vulnerable for other people because we
I
put up
see.
our own walls to protect ourselves on whatever our mission is at that time.
So you don't want to delve out, like venture outside of that.
Yeah.
And so you have to open up
Yeah.
and sort of lay yourself bare almost to open yourself up to be able to even recognize that something is wrong.
Right. You know, and there's another concept that talks about, it's one of the books I wrote down in here, but it's called His Needs, Her Needs. And kind of the premise of it is focusing on other people to fill their cup, right? And if there's reciprocity in that, right? So if this is you with your spouse, for example, right? If I just focus on her and filling her cup and doing those things that I know make her feel loved, right? And then she reciprocates that by filling my cup, doing those little things, right? It's going to be completely different things. She doesn't want what I want. I don't want what she wants, right?
But
She
naturally,
wants flowers.
You're different people.
And I want a hunting magazine. You know, so it's like they're different things, but that makes me feel loved. It's like she knows that I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So she picks up a hunting magazine or a gun magazine and she's like, oh man, what's the newest technology? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I bring her flowers and she's feeling like she knows that I'm thinking of her, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a small example of if we extrapolate that to the rest of our day, if I'm stopped to get gas at a gas station, for example, I don't care about what the next guy is going through at the next pump. I don't have time for that. I've got about 4 minutes to get my tank filled to get back on the road.
Yeah.
But that's where the vulnerability comes in. Because I think all of us probably at some point has seen someone who's struggling at a gas station, right? Yeah. Is there risk involved? There's always risk because that's going to suck up time in your day, right? It might suck up resources that you may or may not have. It may suck up the emotional, any kind of emotions that you have left for yourself, right? To deal with somebody else's stuff, right? It might be physically dangerous. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things around that, but that's where that vulnerability comes in.
And I think that it bleeds right into what you're saying about courage too, and I think that talking about, do we have anything left? I think that we will all find that there is always more love to give. That is an infinite resource, I believe, because it comes from an infinite being. And that ultimately is where, if we tap into that, regardless of whether or not we think we have any more, we will always have more to give to somebody.
Right.
And so I think that that's beautiful. Thank you for going into that. That was just a fantastic answer. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, man, we write a whole book. I don't know if there ever have been books written.
Literally.
Literally on this concept of giving. And it's without expectation.
Right.
To get anything back, right?
Right.
With a big thing that we talk about is the bridge strategy the 5 building blocks to success that we talk about. Number 4 is complete their bridge, right? Which is all about, one of the key things to success is to be able to see other people and what is it that they need.
Right.
I'm not looking around for someone to complete my bridge. I'm looking around to complete other people's bridges.
Yep.
You go to Tina and say, what do I give to you? I'm filling your cup.
Right.
I'll fill your cup if you fill mine.
Right.
That's not how it goes.
Right.
Bridges go both ways. So what's amazing about that concept is that when you finish somebody else's bridge, it's going to come back to you anyways.
Yep. Agreed.
Because the bridge is made now.
Yeah.
And so it reciprocates. Yep. But I think that key though is what you were saying, that vulnerability enough to open yourself up to just give without expecting or needing something to come back.
Right.
It's what you get out of it is really that feeling of I've given to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that just feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, like it feels good to be able to have made somebody else's day, or and who's to know what a smile or a hi or those small gestures that we do to other people, who's to know what that
you're absolutely right.
What
You're absolutely
what
right.
effect that's going to have on people. down the road. So diving into kind of how you have seen success, and we can kind of apply this to everything that we're talking about. What have been some of the limiting beliefs that you personally have had to overcome in order to get through those kind of difficult times to ultimately kind of get to where you are? You mentioned a few of them,
Yeah.
kind of interspersed, but
Yeah. So, and I think I'll just preface this by saying we all learn in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And I was always the kid who had to learn through my own example, right? So my dad was a little bit of a hellion. I didn't learn his lessons. My brothers were a little bit of hellions. I didn't learn their lessons. I had to learn my own lessons.
Yeah,
and those are sometimes the hardest, but best lessons to learn, right?
Yeah.
And so then over time, you start making these mistakes in life, and you start going through some hard times and just kind of learning and growing and understanding a little bit more at a time. But like for me, there's self-doubt, right? Am I good enough? Do I deserve to be here? Right? Almost like imposter syndrome. Do I, like, I've had experiences where I'm sitting around a table in a prison with the warden, with the chief of security, with the top brass, right? And I'm sitting there representing healthcare, right? And I've had these moments like, wow, I've got a seat at the table. Should I?
Am
right?
I allowed to be here?
Should I be here? Am I saying the right things? Am I doing enough? Right? And I've had moments in those meetings where I say the wrong things. And it doesn't necessarily click at the time, but then afterwards, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. Like, what do they think of me now? And now it goes further,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like some of that spinning, about what value do I bring?
I think ultimately everybody deserves a seat at the table. What I've found out is that nobody should ever be out of reach to anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I get that people are busy, and so you might not be able to get a meeting with the CEO of this other big company or whatever, but just like sometimes that feeling of I don't deserve to talk to that person will stop us from even trying.
Yes.
I had a recent experience where I reached out to this guy, as a best-selling author. His book was great and it was fantastic. And I decided to reach out to him because what the heck?
Yeah.
And he answered.
Yeah.
And then we had a conversation on the phone, and it was great. And he's going to be on the podcast later.
That's cool.
Lonnie, I'm still looking forward to our interview. He wrote a book called Red Shoes Living, which is great. It's all about changing the world around you through positivity.
Yeah.
And he's a great business coach, and he's a keynote speaker and all this other stuff. And so for me, he's like where I want to be.
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit intimidating to reach out to him, but it was this amazing experience where I realized that everybody deserves a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Nobody's out of reach, and nobody should ever think that, because that's going to stop you from introducing yourself to the people that you're going to be able to collaborate with.
Right.
To do these amazing things.
That's it. And, I think it comes back to courage, because I think we all have these self-doubt thoughts at some point, and just kind of pushing through that to walk up to somebody, to introduce yourself, to send that email, to pick up that phone, that kind of stuff. It's like, after you do that a few times, you'll have some negative results, you'll have some positive results, but I think what we all end up coming to is we have an understanding that we're all just people, and we're all just trying to figure this out together.
100%.
And so, like you said, the collaboration that brings, now you can do these other big things, right? Because we have these connections.
No, and I think that that's interesting too, because going off on a little bit of a tangent here, I think that in our society, it's so easy to put people into boxes. Mm-hmm. You're in the 1%. You have more prestige than I do. You're a celebrity.
Right.
You're more educated. You whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that I think some of that is in the nature of who we are. with the whole primitive brain, we like our tribes,
Right,
and we,
right.
we stick to those. But the benefit of having evolved is that we now have the ability to look at that and go, no, it's not dangerous to venture outside of that. But it's interesting too, because they've done some studies on how that social anxiety that comes from reaching out to somebody that's in a different circle triggers the same part of the brain that's that fight or flight mechanism in your brain.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Someone talks to you and you go,
Yeah.
you dive out the window when
Right.
the cute girl talks to you at school or whatever. At least that's what you want to do. But I think that bleeds over into all these other areas that we can experience that same thing, but we need to have a little bit of that courage to get past that. So
Yeah.
how did you get through that imposter syndrome? Or is it something you're still dealing with?
Well, maybe to some extent,
Yeah.
right? I think you start to get comfortable in that. You can choose to get comfortable in it, or you can choose to stay in your comfort zone. Right?
Interesting. You get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. It's like the military. They talk a lot about you embrace the suck. It's going to suck, right? It's going to be hard. I listen to these podcasts of high level military people, and there's no doubt about what they are doing is hard.
Right.
And they will not ask anybody to do anything that they haven't done.
Yeah.
And it's hard stuff. And so you just kind of get comfortable with that idea and just accept it is what it is. It's going to suck, but we're going to get through it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You could die. So anything short of that is going to be okay, and you're going to learn a lot.
Boom.
Right?
Motivation right
That's
there.
it.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, but that is so true. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's fantastic.
The other thing, humility is a big thing, right? I have this, I think it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but I like to say I'm most proud of my humility, right? And so, but a long time ago I read, I think Paul Mitchell, one of his books, he talked about when he was young and coming up, he was always willing to do what others wouldn't, right? Whether that's sweeping the floor, mopping the floor, cleaning toilets, whatever that is, right? Yeah. Working in a salon as a young kid back in those days, if you're willing to do stuff, other things present themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because then you show the people that you're working with or people who might see that you're willing to do what it takes to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right? It might not be the sexiest thing or the most exciting thing, but that's the work, right? So if you show up, number one, just show up, hopefully on time, but you show up and then you do the work and you're willing to do the work, those are the people I look for. It's that attitude that we're looking for. And so that's kind of some of the things that's helped me to get, I think, to where I am now, is that I've understood and learned to recognize you can train people to do tasks, right?
Yeah.
We can train anybody to do anything, right? Go to the moon. But you can't train attitude.
Yeah.
Right? And so
that's a decision people have to make.
You're absolutely right. So, and you bring it with you every single day. How are you showing up every day? Are you engaged? Are you not engaged? Are you upset? Are you excited? I mean, is there a happy medium in there? All that kind of stuff. But those are the kinds of things that we look for in people. Like, how are they naturally? And then bring them into our organization.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So.
Now, bringing this full circle, because we're running to the end here. What is somebody that wants to get into the mental health space career, just to kind of tie these two together?
Sure.
We talked a little bit about just kind of what we kind of everyday people can do to help the people around us and everything like that. How do we, as somebody that wants to get into the mental health career, what's advice you would give them?
Yeah. I mean, two schools of thought come to mind. So one, you do it for the money, right? Which, if you're coming in at a certain level, you're going to get paid, right?
Yeah.
Psychiatrists, some of the highest paid people in our country,
Yeah.
right? BHMPs or the mental health professionals, mid-level providers, what we call PAs or NPs, that kind of thing. You're still, I mean, you can make a really good career out of this.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And then, of course, nursing staff. Mental health nursing is different than working in a hospital, working in long-term care.
Yeah, you're not in the ER.
Yep, it's mental health. And so there's different skills involved as well.
Such as?
Well, so de-escalation, verbal de-escalation, right? A lot of what we do is just talking, right? And so it's a different skill set than a nurse might learn in nursing school or might use in an ER where you're doing more physical body trauma kind of stuff than you are emotional trauma, right? And so a lot of those, it just, I guess what I would say is if you don't have a passion for it, it will be hard, just like anything else, right? It's still a job at the end of the day. But if you love people, this could be very rewarding. If you want to help people, there's no shortage of opportunity. Right?
Awesome. You said 2 schools of thought.
Well, so that's it. So you're in it for the money or you're in it to help people.
Oh, I got you.
Right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the reason I get up every day is because I have this opportunity to help people every day. We can build processes, we can build technologies, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that precedes that is people, right? So people, processes, and technology. Those are kind of the big drivers. If you don't have the people, you're not doing anything, right? So the relationships that you have, your management style, servant leadership, all that kind of plays into this. But how you interact with people will determine your outcomes, because nobody wants a jerk on the team.
No.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. And we've all had them. And some of you, you know who you are. You are that person. You can change, though. So that's the important part. No, I think that, what you said was that really struck me as profound is that people have to come first. With all this progress that we're making, and actually it kind of goes back to what you were saying before. When you're in your own bubble and you don't, you're doing it for someone else, but you don't see those other people.
Right.
That's not putting those people first.
Right.
If we're trying to have a career, if we're trying to feel fulfilled in life, we have to realize that the people, the relationships come first. The community, family, whatever it might be, there are people behind those things.
Yep.
And ultimately, I think that for whether it's a senior executive or a doctor or someone scrubbing toilets, we have to, or when we realize that there are people behind why we do those things, it all of a sudden becomes way more fulfilling with what we're doing, because we're affecting the lives of the people around us.
Agreed.
Making their lives just a little bit better.
Yep.
So, Adam, oh my gosh, I know we didn't get to everything that we had talked about beforehand, but I have absolutely loved having you on, and the insights and the lessons that I have personally taken away from all of this. And I know you guys had to have as well. Thank you for coming on and representing Mind 24/7.
Yeah, happy to.
Absolutely. Am just eternally grateful for what it is that you guys do. Having been through my own experiences and knowing just how valuable that is, and that divide that a lot of times goes unbridged, where there's that immediate need that you guys fill to be able to help bridge that divide for people. And so
Absolutely.
Thank you from
My
me
pleasure.
and from all of us. And for all of you guys, if you are going through any of these things that we have talked about, please ask for help. We want to do everything that we can to ask you if you need help. But if you're going through something, do not do it alone. You don't have to. We don't want you to. And we want you to be able to get through that. And know that you can. You do have the strength to do it. Your life does matter. And life is worth living. And we want to have you around. You have much more to give the world than you might know, but that we want to see. I love you guys. Keep being amazing. We'll see you next time.